welcome to the Readington Township Board of Education. This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act and is open to the media and public. Notices were duly posted and the meeting was advertised in the Hunterdon County Democrat and Courier News. Formal action may be taken. Can you please rise for the flag salute?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome. Tonight we honor 4 students from Hollenbrook School who recently had the opportunity to take part in the Noetic Math Competition. This is a national, semi-annual competition that allows students to use their math knowledge for non-standard problems. The program is designed to help students become better mathematicians, better thinkers, and therefore better equipped for advanced STEM learning, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. The goal of the contest is to develop students' problem-solving skills, to encourage their interest in math, to inspire them to excel in math. All of our Hollenbrook 4th grade students earned the National Honor Roll, placing them in the top 10% of the grade level in the competition. And one student, Jaden Chen, not only earned a place on the National Honor Roll, but also tied for the highest 4th grade score overall. Tonight, we recognize these accomplishments, and we'd like to call on each of the students individually to receive a little certificate. So we'll start with Henry Schwartz. Jason Rocher. Thomas Ambio. Jaden Chen. I don't know if Jaden or Thomas are online, but tonight we have Henry and Henry is here, and Jason is here. Thomas, are you online? Or Jaden, are you online? Boys, congratulations on this wonderful honor. Thank you so much for representing Hollenbrook School with such spectacular math skills at the math competition. We want to congratulate you. Congratulations. Dr. McGibbon and Ms. Ogden, I know you're here tonight, and I know that you were instrumental in helping these 2 students. Would you like to come up and say anything or get in the picture? Stand well on the road. Guys, can I join you? Can I join you for? Is that okay? Thank you, everybody. Congratulations. Do you, no pressure, do you want to tell the Board of Education anything about the competition? Would you like to share anything?
It was hard.
Come on over here, stand right here, and tell them how you did.
I did pretty good. It was really hard. really hard.
Anything else? No? Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Great job.
For my superintendent's report tonight also, by the way, families, you're welcome to stay. we have some budget presentations. If you're interested, we do have the curriculum department is here tonight. They are going to present their budget proposal for what's included in their budget for the 23-24 school year. And they're also going to present the Start Strong results from an assessment that was provided or given to students back in September. So I'll invite the curriculum department up to the podium to, what would you like to do first? Budget presentation or Start Strong results? Budget? Okay, sounds great. Come on up. Families, if while we're transitioning, if you'd like to stay, you're welcome to. If you'd like to go. Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Sarah, give me 1 second. For Board of Ed members, if you have your device with you, make sure you're logged into the BOE portal. All of the information that the curriculum department, Pupil Services Department, and Technology Department presents tonight is listed in your board documents, so you can follow along with each presentation. Tonight is the first set of budget presentations. Tonight we have curriculum, Pupil Services, and Technology. Next time we meet, which is later this month, we'll have personnel, facilities, as well as transportation, and some other administrative items in the budget. Sarah, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Couch. I'm the supervisor for Math, Science, Technology, Health, and PE. And I will begin the curriculum department's review of our proposed budget for the 23-24 school year. Our curriculum department consists of 4 supervisors overseeing all content areas, the counselors, as well as professional development and intervention services. It's an array of teacher and student categories. We began our highlights with new initiatives or things that are new to the budget. One of the things that we've been planning for is a possible new classroom due to increasing enrollment. So we've budgeted money for supplies that classroom might need, as well as a classroom library. In social studies in 8th grade, we are renewing the current 8th grade textbook. So it's the same resource, but it's just up for renewal. We need to include our health primary resources into the budget this year as well. And we have money set aside for professional development keynote speakers, which we've had over the last few years for either the opening in-service days or the in-service days in October or March. We've had an opportunity to bring in some wonderful speakers for the staff. Any questions about the new initiatives or new to the budget?
For the social studies textbooks for 8th grade, were they purchased new last year? Is this like software or?
I'm going to go next in.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm Stacey Brown. I'm the supervisor of humanities, which also includes social studies. We purchased textbooks last year for K through 5. They are using Inquiry Ed. The middle school uses TCI, and we're kind of on a rolling renewal with them because we bought 6th grade, we bought 8th grade, and then last year when we renewed 6th grade, we also bought 7th grade. So they'll be on a renewal cycle together. Okay. So I'll start the next.
Question.
Sure.
Can you just elaborate, what is health primary resource?
That would be Sarah.
Sorry. So with the update to the new standards, we also approved the Great Body Shop as our primary resource for health. And we've added that to the budget this year as a new item. And that would be the cost for Katie.
So I'll start you off into the next section, which are the reoccurring items. So they appeared in last year's budget and then will remain again into this year's budget. So we have money set aside for a variety of mentored level and decodable texts for grades K through 8. That's to refresh our classroom, libraries, and book rooms in order to keep our books current and then make sure that they're updated and in line with any best practices for literacy. We have budgeted for summer reading books for grades K through 5. We provide those to our struggling readers as they go home for the summer so that they can continue their work with their parents at home. We have put a new universal screener in place this year for GT, which is going to take place in the spring. So this is budgeting for that reoccurring cost for the universal screener for GT. And then meeting is always a reoccurring line item in our budget. This year, it's substantially less than last year. We did a large overhaul of our curriculum over the past couple of years, but we do have new language arts and math standards that we're anticipating coming out likely sometime this summer. So we're going to prepare and then have a revision cycle for those subject areas, which will include the language arts and math documents, but also all of our other documents have interdisciplinary connections, and so all of those will have to be shifted as well. And then I will hand this over to Ms. Cryo.
I am Sherry Cryle. I'm the supervisor of staff development and technology, as well as a school safety specialist in the district. We budgeted for supervisory professional development. That's for all 4 of us supervisors to attend conferences to stay current, as well as professional organizations, which includes membership dues and any subscriptions to national and state organizations to help us stay current on everything. We've also budgeted for district level staff training. This is training that we always put in of things that we want the staff to go to. And right below that is the building level staff training, and that is training that the staff members would want to, find something interesting that they want to attend, that they would seek their principals out. We are continuing to budget for a coordinator for green initiatives and sustainability. We are again budgeting for the Teacher Academy program. This runs over the fall and again in the spring and then also in the summer. It includes facilitators, stipend, participant stipend for summer only, and also any Teacher Academy books for book studies and things like that. Also, we budgeted for our in-service days. We currently have 3 of those, and Parent Academy, and those are all teacher facilitators that would be facilitating for those days for the in-service and the Parent Academy night that we're starting up this year. Okay. And with that, anyone have any questions on that part? And otherwise, I will turn it over to.
Just had a question.
Yes.
Could you explain with things like the curriculum writing, as opposed to like textbooks or materials we're purchasing, what's involved in like some of the labor? Why is that not just included with people's salaries?
For the curriculum writing piece?
Yeah.
The curriculum writing, we have staff members that usually over the summer are employed to rewrite the curriculum and make the changes that are needed to the
Well,
curriculum.
this happens over the summer.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm Anthony Tumolo, the social emotional learning supervisor. So in our budget, we included PD travel and supplies for all the school counselors, all 6 school counselors. And then also, once again, for the annual conference for 2 counselors to attend. So we did that last year, when we doing it this year. The last page, the last section is has no impact on the budget, but we are using our federal funding grant money to continue the following pieces. So we're going to continue our employee assistance program, which we've been doing for a couple of years. We will also include our tier 3 licensed school-based counselor at RMS for next year. Academic interventions, including after-school programs, homework help, summer program. The iReady individualized instruction for K-8 math and reading will include as well, and then parent outreach.
Question, the school-based counselor at RMS, is that the part-time that is removing help?
Yes, so next year we're hoping that it will be 5 days a week.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next section is the pupil services budget, so I'll invite Mrs. Beagle up. And board members, this is another attachment in your board documents, so you'll just have to go down one and open up the pupil services budget. You'll find that it's in the same format. Mrs. Beagle will talk about some new initiatives and some recurring things that are developed in her budget.
Hello, everyone. Well, I guess there's no need for a 7th inning stretch tonight. This is going very smoothly. We should knock on wood, right? Well, anyhow, so my Department of Pupil Services, we have school health services, which is our nurses. We have our English language services, our child study team, special education, speech and language services, behavioral services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and section 504. If you take a look at our new initiatives, I think it's really exciting. So this year, we actually, I'm including it this year, but it will be on the budget for next year. We have started a new behavioral disabilities program at our Three Bridges School. This was a journey, a couple months, and we've done it. The program opened on February 1st. 2 students, a fabulous special education teacher, and a fabulous paraprofessional, as well as a team of the school counselor, the child study team member. We're rocking it. But anyhow, this is a new program. We have come together with great donations from Three Bridges to get supplies, but at the same time, we need to build the program in terms of the materials and resources. So I have budgeted money for next year to continue to build the program and the resources needed. Additionally, next year, due to the increase in our autism population, we will be opening a new classroom at our White House School next year. Currently, right now, at White House School, we have 6 students in our autism program. That is max what we could have by code. We know that next year we will have 2 students coming up from our preschool program into the classroom, so that will, we will need to open another section. So the materials and just building that program with all they need. Those supplies are needed. I know at the personnel committee that will come up regarding the teacher. We're looking to reallocate staff. We're not looking to hire new staff for that program. As far as recurring items in my budget, we have out-of-district tuitions. In this budget, I have budgeted for 3 students for an out-of-district program. Those are children that we do not have a program in district for. They require a higher level of service that we are not able to provide. Additionally, if you take, and I'm gonna have you jump to the no impact to the budget, I also have budgeted out of district tuition through my IDEA funds. Currently projecting for next year, we will have 5 students out of district. I do not project any students currently right now that will need an out of district program due to the programs that we have created. However, my magic 8-ball does not tell me about any children that we might have moving into the district that might require an out of district placement. But currently right now, we are in solid shape with the programs that we have in providing the services that our children need. Department supplies and materials. So for supplies and materials, we are purchasing materials for our special programs that are outside of the general education materials, such as our specialized reading programs. Additionally, underneath the supplies and materials are all of the materials and supplies that are needed to outfit our school nurses' offices, child study team testing kits, ESL testing kits, iPads for our children in our autism program, as well as speech and language materials. This is all materials that need to be purchased outside of what is considered general education. Department professional development. I know that Mrs. Kreil talked about professional development as part of their budget. However, for special education, we do have some specific needs for professional development. So underneath this budget, as well as you will see underneath our IDEA, I have budgeted a good deal of money for professional development. This comes with, we have consulted with an outside agency, Integrated Speech and Language, who comes in and does professional development for our teachers, for our speech and language, for our children, as well as parents. They do our assistive technology assessments, as well as any of our children in our autism program that have an augmentative communication device. They provide training for the staff as well as for the parents. They are coming in on our March 17th and working with our speech and language and our autism teachers on BoardMaker, which is a program that creates a picture program for our children to help develop the language. Additionally, we consult with other outside agencies to come in and provide specialized development for our child study team, speech nurses. March 17th, we have a consultant coming in who will be doing a presentation on Tourette's syndrome that is open to all of the district. Purchase professional services. So that looks like a big chunk of money, and I will tell you what that is. For our professional development services, we outsource some of our testing that is not done by child study team. We will outsource any testing that is needed for neurological, audiology. We have children that have feeding issues, so that we work with an agency who will do those types of testing. In addition, our occupational therapy evaluations, our PT evaluations come underneath the purchase professional services. Those are really services that our child study team and our teachers are not able to provide in district. However, our students require those services, and or we need that information to help provide programming for our students. I'll pause for a moment. Are there any questions so far? Oh, yes.
Sorry, I was gonna wait till the end. You had mentioned ESL, I think it was under Department of Supplies and Materials.
Yes.
But do you have room in the budget for if there's any need, if there's larger ESL needs? I mean, I just wasn't sure.
So yes, so we have been working very creatively with our scheduling, also with our current staff who have ESL certification to be able to provide additional services for our students, primarily at Three Bridges. We're looking at our preschool program that as of right now, we have not provided direct services. We have provided consultative services to the teachers in that program. But we are looking district-wide how to be able to creatively staff and meet the needs of the students in that area.
I missed asking when the curriculum folks were up as well, and maybe it comes to a different part of the presentation, but the stuff, the recurring items that remaining in the budget, does it say whether this is an increase this year for the dollar amounts or
No,
decrease or the
actually,
same, or?
Mr. Bowen, my budget is under, correct? Did I say that loud enough? My budget is coming in lower than last year. There might be, you know what, in certain areas, in certain budget lines, we might have an increase just due to the need of the additional programs. But for example, one of the areas we were able to decrease was in the nursing services. We were able to probably almost $10,000 deduct for COVID supplies. So I have to say, you know what, it's one of those take from here and move to here, but bottom line, my budget's coming in lower than last year.
Thank you.
Our related services and professional services and educational services. So this again is a more big ticket item. So we, for our children who require related services in the area of occupational therapy and physical therapy, we actually work with an agency and we have consultants come in. I believe that this is more of a cost savings to the district because we are hiring based on student need versus hiring someone full-time and paying for health benefits. So we are able to work with their schedules based on our student needs. Additionally, under that underneath that big line item is we also work with our school physician, Dr. Frank, who consults with our nursing, our nurses, sometimes on a daily basis, but he does review all of our forms for sports. He reviews anything, any documentation for home instruction. He reviews our nursing service plans. He is on call whenever we need him, whenever there is a medical type question. I think his phone is not ringing as much this year as it has in the past, but he was on speed dial for us, Dr. Hart, right? But anyhow, that is an ongoing, a reoccurring budget item. Bedside instruction, we continue to have that as a line item. That has been a line item that has not necessarily been utilized, however, due to COVID. However, this year we have had students that have required that service. They could be hospitalized for illness and or for therapeutic reasons, and that we are responsible for providing the instruction for that child. No impact to the budget. So also in my purse, I have IDEA, and for the most part, the funds that come out of that are out of district tuition, our professional development and training, and then teacher materials and supplies for our specialized programs.
Any questions?
All right, I'm good to go. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy. I'll invite Mr. Belsky up to present the technology budget. And I'll point out for especially newer board members, in both of the budget presentations from the curriculum department and from pupil services, you're seeing acronyms like IDEA, ESSER, and ESSA. These are federal entitlement programs where we get federal dollars for specialized programs in districts. So while it says no impact to the budget, I think it's more like no impact to the local taxpayer because these are federal dollars that go to our students. Just want to clarify that. This is ESSA, ESSER, and IDEA. All three are programs that we get from the federal government, or funding that we get from the federal government. And Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
I have a question just for the audience sake here. Would it be possible for these acronyms for our benefit, if maybe just one time as someone is expressing them, that they could explain what it is, just what it stands for? That would be helpful.
IDEA is the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. It's a federal 1973 funding for students with disabilities in education. ESSA is the Every Student Succeeds Act, authorized in the 1960s, also known as No Child Left Behind, and then it became ESEA, and now it's back to ESSA. And ESSER is the third round of federal COVID funding that came from the federal government. This was known first as the CARES Act, then ESSER 2, and now ESSER 3/ARP, the American Recovery Act.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start off by running through an overview of our technology budget for this year. Our technology budget this year will focus on 3 new priorities: upgrading our network hardware, enhancing telecommunication infrastructure, and security. Phase 1 of the planned network switch upgrade will provide enhanced internet bandwidth and redundancy, while also providing capacity for future district needs and growth. In addition, the network upgrade will provide a foundation to support additional phase 2 and 3 infrastructure upgrade initiatives planned over the next few years. We'll also be transitioning our on-site phone system to an externally hosted platform this year. This initiative will assist our district in complying with new FCC regulations, focusing on enhancing communication and providing increased on-site security capability. Additionally, this platform will offer off-site accessibility to our phone system in the event of a prolonged power or network outage. Related to our efforts in improving district security, we will be phasing in an upgrade of our existing on-site video camera surveillance system. Our initial focus will be replacing external video cameras with improved reliability and optical resolution capability. Additional phases will then focus on upgrading our internal cameras, including servers running our video surveillance platform. These technologies will help support our strategic goal for inquisitive learning, as well as our technology department goal for this school year. And I'll go through some of the highlights this year, starting off with new initiatives to the budget. We do have an entry in there for migration from the phone system over to the cloud, which is the Cisco Web Voice over IP. This system, this will be the annual subscription cost, which will include the Cisco cloud hosting, Cisco's Fusion and Red Sky technology, which provides E911 security integration, which allows us to provide identity for classroom calls that are being made, so we know exactly where calls are being made. A couple of other software initiatives were added this year. Moving down through recurring items remaining in the budget. The first section will be annual hardware upgrades. We focus on our sixth graders. All sixth graders receive a Chromebook, and we'll keep that through middle school. We'll repurpose the eighth grade Chromebooks back down to the lower grades as needed. We have some staff laptops in there, as well as an entry for parts and supplies. Below that, we have some of our key software that we have that runs the district. This will be our student information system, some data assessment software, as well as some website and Microsoft licenses. And then moving over to capital maintenance projects. So we have three, so we highlighted the three main projects for this year, which is the phase one, the Cisco core network that I mentioned. In particular, what we're looking to do is to upgrade 4 switches this year. This will replace 7 main switches at each of the buildings. These switches are also E-rate eligible, so we'll be able to get some significant reimbursement back from this initiative. Our hosted voice over IP platform upgrade. This will include the installation and covers all phone service security subscriptions for 5 years. We are anticipating some additional savings as we start to get into subsequent years, because we're going to be able to reduce some of the phone line dependencies that we have on site. So since we're going to a cloud platform, we're going to be able to remove some of the components that we needed to have on site previously. So that could add up to save some significant amounts to the district moving forward. And as I mentioned, we have the video camera system upgrade. Just a couple of specifics on that. The phase one upgrade will focus on external cameras first. That's where we're tending to see the highest failure rate. Many of the cameras in the district are approaching the 8-9 year mark. So that's at a point where we do want to replace them before they fail. So that will be our focus. And then we will start focusing on internal cameras and any move requests that we get from the And then no impact for the budget we're planning for. We have iReady, which is our math, reading and math assessment instruction. A couple of other mystery science and Rosetta Stone, which all will be funded through grants. And we are looking to pre-purchase an interactive whiteboard for a hologram this year. Any questions? Yes?
Question on the software. So obviously during COVID, we really kind of ramped up the different software programs. Have we kind of scaled back down, like just ones that are really high use? Is that, yeah?
We do try that each year, and that's a pretty big undertaking. work with the supervisors and the teachers and the building principals. There's a lot of software, everything is software driven now, but that is something that we do try to go through and identify the areas of software that we no longer need. Maybe that was more appropriate during COVID, and those areas that we still need to use moving forward.
I thought I saw IXL and there, I was like, are we still using that? But I guess somebody must be for something.
And some of it will be scaled back based on needs. So, and we do have tools that we look at how much they're being used. So some of these programs, we can get pretty clear insight on how many students are logging into them and how often it's being used.
That's great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
How do I get to unmute?
Oh,
Press it, yeah. Sorry. Similar question. So overall effect on budget, more, less, about the same?
I think the overall budget this year is up by 1%.
1%.
8%. The phone system, initially it's going to be up higher while we're doing the transition, but as we start to migrate over and we start to remove those components that I was referring to, it should be about breaking.
And we all know the price of eggs. And
It's-
so I think
Yes.
breaking even or even 1% is amazing. Did a
Trying
great
to
job.
keep it,
Yeah.
exactly, trying to keep it as close as possible. And that obviously is important.
Sure.
Plus, there's other savings that we're going to have by going to a hosted platform. The support of the servers on site would consume a cost and skill set, and we would no longer need that since it's going to be hosted on external. So we'll have some softer cost savings.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Sure, thank you.
Are there any final questions on the budget before we move on to this curriculum department Start Strong presentation?
I have one question.
Yeah.
Just going back to the first two presentations, is there any like guidelines or anything that would tell us when it's necessary to go outside the district for these consultants or professional development? I just ask because, it surprised me last year as well that we have very capable people. And I never really understand why. Like if we have a curriculum supervisor or someone is developing curriculum, is an expert in it, why are we then paying someone to come in and teach that person?
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's like a general guideline for what we have to do. It seems like a lot of money goes to that.
There's actually, I think we're actually pretty good at using the expertise in the district if you look at some of the professional development line items. When we talk about teacher academies, the parent academies, curriculum writing, the vast majority of the budget money uses our internal expertise in the form of, teacher academy program that's projected to be 36,000, in service days 5,000, those kinds of things. So to the extent we can, we like to use our internal expertise, and we like to have teachers teach other teachers some of those strategies through those teacher academies as well. Our supervisors often run teacher academies as well. They develop the professional day agenda items when we have new curricular initiatives, and they provide vast majority of the training. There are times where the district administration feels it's more important or critically important to go out to an outside consultant for something that may be a newer topic, something that a revision of curriculum where, for example, we have our transition to classroom ready or iReady for math. When we do something like that, they will provide even free or low cost professional development to us to better understand and transition our teachers over to their new program as well. And truthfully, sometimes it takes an outside expert and their expertise to bring a fresh perspective to the staff as well. And I think that there's value in that too. I think that, hearing about new initiatives from the supervisory staff and the administration is important, but I also think that the staff appreciate a fresh approach and hearing the voice of someone different, not always me or Sarah or Stacy sometimes. Are there state guidelines? No. For when we get a consultant versus when we do it internally. Are there state guidelines for what we have to offer on an annual basis? Yes. And I think that it's just good, solid professional practice that anytime you're doing a new initiative or curriculum writing or developing or purchasing a new program, to have some systemic professional development in multiple years so that teachers can better use those programs as well. And when the curriculum supervisors come back up too, I'm sure that there are things I'm missing. So if there's anything I didn't mention to answer Randy's question, let me know.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any general budget questions? So this is part one. Part two will be next time. You'll hear from the facilities department, transportation department, and Jason and I will walk you through general administration as well as personnel. And with that, I'll invite Sarah and Stacy back up to present the Start Strong results.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Sarah Pouch, Supervisor for Math, Science, Technology, Health, and PE. I'm also District Testing Coordinator. So this evening, we'll be giving you the results of the Start Strong assessment that was taken in the fall of 2022. So the Start Strong assessment was state mandated, and it was to be given for information so that we could help evaluate student needs. And it was administered quickly in person and provided immediate results. Start Strong does not replace our local benchmarks or diagnostic assessments. It's used in conjunction with that, and it does not replace the spring New Jersey Student Learning Assessment, or NJSLA, and the results of Start Strong are not predictive of how students might do on NJSLA in the spring. The design is based on a subset of standards from the prior school year. For example, our 5th grade students were reassessed on the 4th grade standards in the fall. And these tests were generated using the released items from previous NJSLA item banks, which is why the teachers are able to see the question as well as how students answered. They were considered efficient questions, which basically translates into multiple choice. And the test was administered in about 45 to 60 minutes. So putting all these pieces of test design together made it so that teachers were able to have the results instantaneously the next day. Because the tests were created based off of already released test items, they had the benefit of actually seeing the question that the students saw, where we normally don't have that benefit in the spring. However, there are some limitations. As they mentioned, it was administered quickly and with efficient questions. That keeping in mind that there were a total of 10 reading questions and no writing, and the math section consisted of 25 questions. So these were very short, targeted skills to help us analyze what students might need help with or what prerequisites might be missing as they move forward into their new school year. The state has said that districts should not compare these individual school or district results to last year's NJSLA data, and they were not designed to predict future performance. So while we're very excited and we saw a great improvement, these are not predictors for the spring. Finally, how the results are interpreted. We were able to use the results for district level planning to make revisions, as I mentioned, and to calculate what prerequisite skills a class or an individual student might need. We were able to use this information to help evaluate our scope and sequence to see if there was anything that needed to be consolidated or spent a little bit more time on. We were also able to use the results to see what professional learning supports might need to be put in place for the teachers so that they can provide the best differentiation possible. The Start Strong individual, as I mentioned, the individual results were available to the teaching staff the very next day. However, the individual student reports were not mailed home or were not available, mailed home to parents until December, which is why we are now reporting out these results in February. So we're looking at outdated information, but we're reporting it as soon as possible. Unfortunately, where we are not looking at the results in a very timely manner, or the teachers are able to look at the information in a timely manner, as well as the administrators, so that we were able to utilize the information that it provided, mostly as individuals and class results, and tonight what we'll be looking at are overall grade level results. Questions about the design and implementation of Start Strong? Right, then I will turn it over to Dr. Brown, and she will continue with the ELA.
So these are our language arts scores. These are current 4th through 8th grade students. We substantially outperformed the state by about 15 to 20 percentage points in each grade level. So your results are divided into 3 buckets. The red is the strong support, the yellow is some, and green is less support maybe needed. That green is the highest category you can be in. There is no category for no support needed. So as you can see here, the majority of our students in every grade level are in the less support maybe needed categories. You can see that our 4th grade and 6th grade are performing just slightly below the rest of the grade levels. This is not likely an indication of a problem in our program, but it is a state trend. Across the state, the 4th grade and 6th grade scores trended lower than the other grade levels, so likely due to a different variable. These are our scores over time. So this is the same grade, but a different group of students. The light purple is our last year's scores. The dark purple are this year's scores. So our 4th grade are our highest performers, and they increased their scores by 22 percentage points, which is amazing. And then the rest of the grade levels either stayed in the general range that they were the year before or grew slightly. And this is a very nice upward trend for us in comparison to the state where their scores all went down in every grade level, which was an interesting development. Fortunately, that did not happen here. These are our scores as cohorts of students, so groups of students over time. Our current 5th grade compared to how they did last year as 4th grade, our current 6th grade compared to how they did last year as 5th grade. So this is really where you're going to see whether or not our programs are working. It's hard to tell growth if you don't know where you started. So we know exactly where they started, and they are all coming in except for that 6th grade group, which again, we looked at on that first slide, that's a state trend, but they're trending downwards, and likely not a problem within our program. But every other grade level is coming in more prepared than they were the previous years, which indicates that the programs and interventions we put in place are currently working, and we're monitoring them to ensure that we are doing everything in the best possible way to get the best results. Do you have any questions before I move into the subgroups? So we've broken these scores down by subgroups. Our first subgroup is race. So our Asian and our multiple races populations are our highest performing groups, with the Asian population performing at 76% at less support needed and 69% for our multiple races. Our Black and Hispanic populations also did extremely well. The Black population reduced their number of students in strong support needed by 10%, which is a very good indicator that we're moving in the right direction and assisting students in filling their gaps. And our Hispanic population has increased their less support needed by 13 percentage points. So each subgroup is showing growth in some way compared to last year. This is our subgroup by gender. Last year, our males were struggling a bit. They came in about 10 percentage points lower than they did here. So they grew about 10%, which puts them exactly on par with our females, and females historically do better in language arts than males, so I was excited to see that we have almost an exactly even split here. And then this is our subgroup by program, our free and reduced lunch, our section 504, our English language learners, special ed, and then our gen ed population. And we're showing good growth in every one of these programs. at about 10% change from last year to this year. So we've shown 10% growth in every single subgroup of program. With our our English language learners showing the greatest amount of growth out of all of our subgroup programs, which we were excited to see because we had several interventions targeted specifically for our ELL students. So this is showing that the programs we have in place are working. Do you have any questions?
Remind us, this test is administered in English, right?
It is administered in English, right?
ELA is administered in English. Students have the opportunity to take the assessment for mathematics in Spanish.
But that's only if they fit a certain criteria.
Correct.
of
Our
being-
ELL teachers go through the criteria to see which students would take the assessment in their native language or English.
In other words, just because you're an ELL student doesn't automatically mean you get it in your native language. You have to hit a certain criteria.
Is it all native languages or just Spanish?
Just Spanish. You can read the directions in any language, but the assessment is only available in English and Spanish.
I have a question. What is the process then once we get the results? So if 23% are needing some support, does that mean tutoring is offered or what happens?
It depends on what the rest of their scores look like. So we would take these as one data point and compare them to other things. So we would compare them to classroom observation. We would compare it to our running records, our iReady scores from the beginning of the year, the NJSLA scores from last year. If this was one outlier and there was quite a few students that this was the one singular outlier and they scored in the red and then they were fine in everything else. So we check within the classroom teacher to make sure that they don't need assistance, and if the classroom teacher confirms that they do not, then we don't move forward with any interventions. If they're showing that they are struggling across the board of assessments, then they would be eligible for potentially tier 2 or tier 3 intervention services in school, after school tutoring, and then the YMCA program that we're running currently, we did reserve seats for students who might be finding benefit to that. And then we would keep an eye on them throughout the year, potentially offer them summer tutoring as well. Anything else? And we'll move on to the math, and I will hand you back to Ms. Couch.
Okay, as we look at our mathematics results, we can see here that these are all of our individual grade levels as well as our Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 performance. As Dr. Brown mentioned, unlike NJSLA, there are only 3 categories here, being strong support, some support, or less support needed. And again, to keep in mind, even if a student achieved 100% on the assessment, the highest category that they can place in is in the less support needed, which are the green bars. The majority of our grades here have the largest percentage of students in needing less support, which is wonderful to see. And in 8th grade, this is the only grade level where students needing some support is the highest percentage. And we need to keep in mind that this is also the grade level where students are removed to take Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. So this is not our entire 8th grade population, but a smaller set of students. It's nice to see all of those upward trends. That's exactly what we would hope to be seeing. Here we're looking at our achievement by grade level. So these are year-to-year comparisons by grade level. And these are different students, but we can see that at every grade level that students are coming in more prepared this year than they were the year before, which is wonderful to see. 5th and 6th grade had the highest increase with the exception of Algebra 1. So Algebra 1 students came in far more, needing far less support than they did the year prior. Next is taking a look at cohorts as we track students from one grade to the next. This one gets a little bit more complicated. The first 4 graphs are our regular grade level math students, starting with last year's 4th graders and how they performed this year as 5th graders, the current 6th graders and their 5th grade scores, the current 7th graders and their 6th grade scores, and the current 8th graders and their 7th grade scores. And we can see that same trend again, that students are coming in this year with needing less support than they did last year. The last three bars address our honors and advanced math classes. So looking at that fifth bar, set of bars over, that is our cohort who took last year in fall of 21 as sixth graders. They took sixth grade Start Strong, which tested them on the fifth grade standards. This year, as honor students, they are enrolled in Algebra 1 as seventh graders. So they went, which tests students on the eighth grade standards. So they went from testing on the fifth grade standards to the eighth grade standards in the span of 1 year. So seeing that 14% drop is not an indication that they're struggling. It's an indication that they have far more sophisticated content that they're being assessed on just, a year apart. They have been taught all of these standards, but they, just as our honor students for the spring in NJSLA, never take the 7th and 8th grade test because once you're placed into a high school level course, you're required to take that assessment. The same holds true for the next cohort. Those were our 7th graders who were in advanced math, and they took, in the fall of 21, they took the Start Strong assessment for 7th grade, which was on the 6th grade standards. This year, being enrolled in Algebra 1, they took an assessment on the 8th grade standards. And then finally, we have our Algebra 1 7th graders last year, who are now currently the Algebra 2 8th graders. And again, seeing that the advanced and honors students having a decrease from year to year, this is not an indication of their success on NJSLA for Algebra 1 or Algebra 2. It's simply they had a large gap in the content from 1 year to the next due to the progression of the advanced and honors classes. Any questions about the groups from year to year or the cohorts? Okay. Our next breakdown is subgroups by race. Our subgroups for our district are reported at a district level. So this is 4th through 8th grade results. And we can see that the results compared to last year, all of the subgroups are on an upward trend compared to last year. So we're seeing that we certainly want to pay attention to our Black and Hispanic population, but they did show improvement compared to last year's scores. And looking at our breakdown between male and female, our percentages are very close. So it's nice to see that there's only a 6% difference between male and female. Typically in research-based, male students tend to outperform female students in mathematics, and here they're very closely aligned with both genders having the most students and needing less support. And finally, when we break down by subgroup of program, we have free and reduced lunch, 504s, ELL, and special ed, as well as general education. As Dr. Brown mentioned, as we've mentioned earlier in the school year, we're making sure that we are paying attention to our ELL group. While they have the largest percentage in needing strong support, they also did show improvement from last year. This is also reported at a district level because our numbers are relatively small. Each individual student carries a very large percentage. So sometimes when we see a percentage discrepancy, it may be the difference of just 2 or 3 students. So we are seeing improvement for our ELL students, and that this is evidence that, again, the supports we put in place are beginning to take effect, and we're starting to see some progress being made there.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Do the ELL students also take it in English, the NJSLA, and the other assessments?
It's so both the iReady Diagnostic and NJSLA and Start Strong are available to students in Spanish. If our ELL teachers, if they meet the criteria to have that, and there's a little rubric that comes with the state testing that outlines where is the student in their proficiency and when does it tip over to be in their benefit to take it in English over Spanish.
Okay.
What percentage of our ELL students are Spanish speaking? versus other languages outside of Spanish?
That's me.
Yeah.
I can find that out. We have Spanish, but we also have many other languages. We have Polish, we have Ukraine, we have Russian, we have, I can find that out.
You know, so many of these assessments and materials in general are very geared to English or Spanish.
Yes.
And I think it leaves out, you know, a large percentage of our ELL students who maybe why that red bar is so high.
Yes.
Because-
And that's definitely something we've been working to, where we have the latitude and the ability, we certainly can. So on a state assessment, we can't deviate from the regulations. However, on our in-house assessments, for instance, the diagnostic, you know, I've worked with one of the ELL teachers where she had said, can I use Google Translate to help type in the questions in Ukraine in her native language so that she can then answer the math questions correctly? And I said, absolutely. And I said, the only drawback is we're not going to have that option during state testing. The ELL students are allowed to have an English to another language translation dictionary, an actual physical book, not a digital access. So I said, do we want to practice using that, the only tool that's going to be available in the spring, or do we want a more accurate read on where they are? And I left it up to the teachers to decide what would benefit the student the most. So in our in-house assessments where we have flexibility, we certainly are trying to accommodate the best we can. When it's a state assessment, we're limited to what we can and can't do.
Is there a reason they have to use a hard copy book versus digital, do you know?
Because the assessments are digital, and when you open a new tab, it automatically kicks you out of the Pearson platform because it assumes you're trying to look up an answer.
So what if it was, you know, like the little translation devices?
Possibly, I believe we would need to get state approval to use those because it is specifically written in handheld dictionary. I think my personal opinion is that the state may be lacking in updating their resources.
Handheld electronic dictionary is
Right,
still
correct.
handheld.
Yeah, true. I personally prefer the option of having them using the Google Translate so that they can hear it and see it in a language that's more familiar to them until they're able to switch over to English, which is why we certainly allow it because then that's what they're trying to do in state testing or diagnostic assessments are supposed to mimic a student's day-to-day activity. This is what they are doing in their day-to-day activities. They are not breaking out their translation dictionary and looking things up in class. So there's definitely a disjoint there.
Thank you.
I guess my fear would be some of these kids may be made ineligible for the advanced math, you know, Algebra 1 or Algebra 2 because of a language barrier as opposed to their math ability.
Correct. And everybody's working to sort that out.
Right.
Where is their math ability versus where is their language ability? And which is why we're using the translation devices during, for instance, the diagnostic. So we could get a good read on where is the student. So far, we haven't come across anybody who's showing exponential improvement based on the language translation. They're showing good improvement, but not necessarily even up to grade level.
Thank you.
Next is science. Start Strong also addresses science, but only in one grade level. The Start Strong assessment, as I said, tests the year prior's material. So for the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment, science is administered in 5th and 8th grade. So our current 6th graders were retested on the 5th grade standards. Our students who were 8th graders last year took Start Strong Science as freshmen up at the high school. And the high school has those results. Fortunately, I've reached out and we'll be able to take a look at those during our articulation time at the high school so we can see how our 8th graders did. So here it's a little bit different because it's just one grade level. We have big wide bars here. But again, the same categories of needing less support, some support, and strong support. Compared to last year, our students are showing improvement. Less support is up 7% from last year. Some support in the yellow is down 2%, as well as strong support in the red having moved down 5%. Looking at these results by subgroups, by race, we're only able to look at results of Hispanic and white. Any of the other subgroups, because it was just one grade level, it's too identifying to sort out the different races. So here we can see that our Hispanic students are doing very well in the science areas of science for 6th grade, as well as our students who are identified as white are just about even between needing less support and some support. Looking at gender, we have our female and male categories, and we're looking at very similar results again, only a 4% difference between our female and male performance, and with a slightly larger number of females needing stronger support. But again, these are also improvements compared to last year. And finally, looking at our subgroups by program, we're only able to look at special ed and general ed. Because of being just one grade level, it's a smaller population. And you can see that our special ed students have the largest majority needing strong support. And looking at general ed overall, we are performing relatively high compared to last year as well. Any other questions for science or math? Okay, and we'll have Dr. Brown will wrap things up for us.
So this test allowed for shortened testing time so that we could get immediate results, but they don't cover the same breadth and depth that the NJSLA would. So we can't make any comparisons to these numbers and then the numbers we got this spring. And then as always, this assessment should be analyzed and paired with other measures of student outcomes. And in the district, we have writing records, we have math assessments online, we have midterm assessments, we have the iReady diagnostic, we have multiple other measures that we can use so that we're not taking one test on one day and then determining an intervention for a student based just on that. We do have multiple intervention strategies in place. Some of these have been in place for several years. Some of them are new. We're continuing the virtual homework help and after-school tutoring for both language arts and math. We are planning to offer summer tutoring to a select group of students who meet the criteria in the upcoming summer. We have interventions during the school day for both language arts and math. New to this year are the STEAM and Literacy YMCA programs that have just begun, and we reserve seats in each of those programs for students who show the need. And we have math and literacy coaches that are continuing to work with teachers on either their personal learning goals or to help them create their data groups in order to fill gaps. We have a literacy consultant new at RMS this year working with the language arts teachers. And then we have professional development in a variety of different venues to support small group instruction, which is a research-based strategy to close gaps in students. And then we also have MyPath personalized learning for K-8 language arts and math. We also have a host of other different interventions that take place either continuously throughout the year or during a section of the year, and we linked that very large, about 4-page document in the presentation, if you would like to see it. Do you have any questions?
I have a comment.
Okay.
I don't know if everyone remembers, but this, the results from last year were a very different picture. And so I just want to commend the staff and everyone for working really hard, because I know it's a snapshot, it's one tiny, quick test, but huge improvements, positive trends, it's all really good stuff. So great job, everyone.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The last item on my superintendent's report is the draft 23-24 school calendar. Our preference is to bring this to the board under the first February meeting so that we can board approve it at our second February meeting. That allows our staff to plan their lives for next year so that they know when they can, go on vacation and do things like that, and as well as our families to plan vacations and adventures for next year. So just a couple of things of note. Our first day for staff will be September 5th. It's the day after Labor Day. And that makes the first day for students September 7th, which is 2 days after Labor Day weekend. In October, you'll see that again, we're doing the 9th and 10th as professional development days. The past 2 years, we've combined these professional development days back to back. Our staff and our administration like this idea of sort of a mini institute or like a mini conference that we can create with 2 back-to-back professional development days. So we maintain that again for next year, but we revisit that periodically to see if this is the best model that we like to use. Throughout November and December, you'll see typical days reflected, such as the NJEA Teachers Convention, Thanksgiving, winter break, January, return from winter break, Martin Luther King Day. And I'll just fast forward to March. There's a professional development day scheduled right now for March 15th. This is a day just to let the board know that we are discussing regionally with Hunterdon Central as well as Flemington Raritan. We'd like to think that someday we could get a regionalized professional development together where we could bring together multiple districts in the county to do a big professional development at maybe Hunterdon Central or JP Case or a big setting. So that's still in the works. The superintendents in each district have been coordinating our calendars. April is spring break, April 1st through 5th, or March 29th through April 5th. And then I'll just fast forward to the last day of school being June 20th. And we would plan for graduation to also be on June 20th. But that again is contingent on the high school because we use their football field. So we can't very well have graduation on the same day. So usually this is a jockeying conversation between us and the high school around this time every year of when the best day for graduation would be for us. This builds in 181 student days and 186 teacher days. The minimum state requirement is 180 student days. We've built in 2 contingency snow days. The 3rd snow day can be a virtual learning day because it still keeps us at the 180 minimum days for student contact. So just like this year, we've planned for 2 snow days, like real snow days, where students have off and 1 virtual day if we need it. Beyond that, we have to look at spring break, end of the school year, and tacking days onto the calendar. So any comments, questions, or feedback before we finalize this and then bring it to the board for approval?
I have a question. So I noticed this past year and this coming year that Columbus Day is no longer a day off.
So
Would
this,
that be October 10th, I think?
I think it's October 9th,
Oh,
actually,
yeah,
is
October
Columbus
9th,
Day.
yes.
So it would be actually a day off for students and a professional in-service day for staff. So I think you're correct. If I remember correctly, I think this year we did not coordinate our PD days with Columbus Day, but next year we did, knowing that perhaps families and parents have off on that day. So at least that October 9th day, I'm pretty sure we coordinated with Columbus Day. Yeah, Monday, October 9th.
But is there a reason it's not a holiday? Because it's not a holiday for the teachers now to be off. I don't know, I'm just curious. I was kind of surprised this past year and then I see it again, so.
I don't think it's ever been a holiday in my time here. No, I think it's always been a professional development day and a holiday for students, but not for staff. Day off for students, but not for staff. Good question. Somebody else had
Yeah,
maybe
that
that.
part. Remind me the virtual days, how, is that something that, I thought that we couldn't call them virtual, can you remind me how that works?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that was like a state thing where it
Yeah.
had to be
180.
only, right,
So
Yeah.
we have 181 days, so we could do 1 virtual day because it would count for us, but not for the state.
so it
Right.
didn't have to be that the state had to qualify in a certain way for it to be a virtual day or not?
That's a different criteria. So there's
Okay.
2 separate buckets here that we're looking at. The one is the 180-day minimum requirement that we have to have student contact days for the state. As long as we reach that 180-day minimum, anything beyond that could be days that we call virtual learning days or whatever we want to have them be. That's what we're talking about built into
Have
the
we ever
calendar.
called that?
No, we've never used
Yeah,
that before.
okay.
No, The state will not allow us to use virtual learning days to count toward the 180 days unless these two criteria happen. One, we're under either a public health emergency from the COVID days or a state of emergency, and we have a state of emergency and close school for 3 consecutive days. The 4th day then can become a virtual learning day, and we can implement virtual learning. So a scenario of that would have been like Hurricane Sandy, right? If we had off for that, I guess it was here, I wasn't here 2 weeks or so for that. It would have been the first 3 days, 1 week. The first 3 days would have been regular ordinary days off, and then by the 4th day, we could have done a virtual learning day. So those are the 2 separate criteria.
Thank you.
Mhm.
One other, when do we know when back to school nights are? I know that that's not like an official thing, but I just wonder if that's something that would be helpful to add to the calendar at some point.
Yeah, once we finalize this school calendar, what we then do is give the calendar to the building principals with high school back to school nights as well, because we wait for them to also give it to us so we don't overlap the high school back to school nights, because I agree with you, we want to put back to school nights in here as quickly as possible. So once this is finalized, then the principals get it and they start plugging in back to school nights, then the HSA starts plugging in HSA events.
No, I think it's great that we're even ahead of the high school for this, right? They're not even in their calendar, they're still in their planning.
Yeah, I know,
So I just think it's great.
we talk,
The sooner
but-
we can get it out of the door, so I
We're-
appreciate that.
We're trying, they have general sketches, we have this, and I don't know when the high school is bringing theirs, but we try our best to coordinate so that those of you who have siblings that are at the high school, we try to map days off as best as possible. The hangup is that the high school has a different teacher's contract that we do that has different provisions about back to school nights and professional development days. So there are going to be some days that we just simply cannot overlap just because of the difference in the teacher's contracts. But we try to, keep definitely spring break, some of the professional development days, and we attempt to have the start of school and end of school be around the same time.
Thank you. So do we know about their first day of school and last yet? Do we look?
I don't want to say yet.
Okay.
And then I'll wait for Dr. Moore to say that.
The only other.
And I don't know for sure. It could
Right,
change.
Right. The only other comment, we did the 2 days in October and the high school did 2 days in September.
Mhm.
So we both took 2 PD days, but they didn't line up. So I like the idea of lining them up in March. It would be nice if it could happen in October too, but
This March, we are aligned with the high school too. So
Okay.
just this March, we are aligned and we'd like to keep it aligned if at all possible.
thank you.
Yep. That finally concludes my superintendent's report. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, and before we go to public comment, can we get a roll call?
Okay.
Notice that. Mrs. Betterman.
I'm here.
Ms. Fiore.
Here.
Ms. Menzer.
Here.
Mr. Peach.
Here.
Mrs. Bogorski.
Here.
Ms. Ryan.
Here.
Ms. Wolf.
Here.
Dr. Cerciolo.
Here.
Ms. Zample.
We are now open to the public, limited to action items on the agenda, or if there were comments regarding the budget or Start Strong, we can do that now while our supervisors are here. Sure.
White House Station. So I guess barring any special needs students, what do you think is the district's capacity to absorb new students without having to increase staff or infrastructure? Just roughly.
Thank you.
Any comments? Mrs. Wolf, is there anything online? Okay. That closes this public comment. Can you address Mr. Curtis maybe?
Yes, more information to follow, Mr. Curtis. I'll let you know. When Mr. Rome and I do the budget presentation, we'll outline our estimated class size for next year. I presented at the last board meeting that we recognize that the Rigid Reddington development is opening periodically throughout 2023, probably opening up fully with all 10 buildings open by July of this year. What we've done deliberately in order to plan for enrollment expansion was we've started in a phased-in approach of redistricting certain neighborhoods from White House area to Three Bridges area, opening up spaces and classrooms in the White House school for an enrollment increase. And we've been planning this actually over the past couple of years. We've added some general ed classroom staff to White House School last year. And we're looking at that in the personnel committee for this coming school year. I don't know if you're looking for an exact number. I can't give you that
No, just
exactly,
rough,
but
I mean, percentage capacity wise.
I mean, we anticipate, I mean, if the rigid Reddington filled, based off of the numbers we have from the Willows at Reddington, we were looking somewhere around 120 students, I want to say district-wide. About half of them going to White House School, so let's call it, 60, 70 students, something like that, which we have contingency already built into the budget and staffing to absorb.
Okay.
That's if it went to full capacity the way the Willows is. And remember, the Willows is now in year 3. So we don't anticipate that huge spike in enrollment, but we anticipate that there would be some enrollment increase. And we plan that through staffing.
Now, has there been any loss in student enrollment where students have not come back, which offset that by any?
I'm okay with that, yeah. We have enrollment in classes, just a general class, like the entire 6th grade, the entire 3rd grade, enrollment numbers were somewhere around, I would say, between 170 and 190 students. I would say maybe, let's call it 180 being average. Right now, we're trending where classes are somewhere around 150, 160 students in all grade levels except for one. We have this, massive 7th grade over at the middle school. It's about 192 students. That's a very large class size. Otherwise, we're pretty stable somewhere around 150 at each grade level. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep, you're welcome. But there has been a decrease, I'll let you know that. And that was in my presentation last month and will be in our budget presentation about the decrease, but then our projected increase.
Will will that part be at next week's, not next week's, but the next February meeting?
No, the final tentative budget approval is on the March 14th Board of Education meeting. What we'll have finalized then is Mr. Bowe and I will meet and we will develop the entire proposed budget, tentative budget presentation, which will include a look at enrollment and a look at class sizes in anticipation that we know that the rigid Reddington is opening over the course of the year this year. So if you're interested, come back March 14th.
Right. Okay, moving on to correspondence, we had 3 emails regarding thank you, a book review, and the book. Moving on to board action, can I get a motion to adopt 1.01 to 1.02, approval of administration reports?
So move that.
Second, Carolyn?
Any questions or comments on the 2 reports? Not hearing any, can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Betterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mrs. Menser.
Yes.
Mr. Peach.
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yeah.
Dr. Cerciolo.
Yes.
Ms. Ample.
Yes. Moving on to approval of minutes, can I get a motion to adopt 2.01, 2.02?
So move that.
Second, Carolyn?
Any questions or comments on the minutes? Not hearing any, can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Betterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mrs. Menser.
Yes.
Mr. Peach.
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski.
Yes.
Ms. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Cerciolo.
Yes.
Ms. Ample.
Yes.
Passes.
Moving on to finance and facilities, can I get a motion to adopt 3.01 to 3.03?
So move that.
Second, Carolyn?
And we have a committee report.
We do. The Finance Committee met on Thursday, January 26th, and we talked about, we focused on the 23-24 budget. We started with the budget timeline, which included that day, which was the preliminary review of the budget. And then tonight, as you heard, a review from the various departments that we heard from tonight: curriculum, staff development, pupil services, and technology. On February 21st, we're going to hear from facilities, transportation, administration, and the personnel benefits departments as well. And then March 14th, there's going to be a presentation of the budget at the board meeting with tentative approval. And by March 20th, there's going to be a submission of the preliminary budget to the county for review. And on April 25th, the final adoption of the budget at our board meeting. The next topic included the budget history and the maximum tax levy. There's a proposed general fund for the 23-24 school year of approximately $32.3 million, plus the debt service of approximately $2 million, for a total of approximately $34.3 million, which represents a 2.7% increase in taxes. We will receive state aid, which, if it comes in higher than budgeted, will likely decrease the tax levy from 2.7 to 2.6%. We do anticipate state aid coming out on February 28th. We have been consistently conservative financially, allowing us to complete capital projects without raising taxes. With respect to enrollment, involving current, projected, and special ed enrollment, there has been a slight decline in enrollment in our district, but we are anticipating our numbers increasing due to the impact of the housing developments. We are able to maintain small class size in all of our schools. Staffing was the next topic, and that will be determined based on the enrollment in each school. There were some major modifications to the 23-24 budget, and we discussed various staff and employee initiatives, including new hires that will impact the budget and recurring items that will remain in the budget, such as salary raises, the ESY program increase, extended school year, and health benefit increase. We then talked about projected revenues, and most of the revenue is our local tax levy. That's approximately $2 million in state aid. Our projected expenses, we will review these items on February 7th and the 21st of February. Again, each department will present items included in their budget as initiatives presented during these budget presentations, and salary and benefits are 85% of our entire budget. We then talked about summer of 2023 capital projects and reserves, which we have been discussing since the fall of 2022. And these items include bathrooms in the kindergarten classes and the RMS roof replacement for the back gym and the art room. And then we set our next meeting for February the 14th at 9 a.m.
Thank you, Dr. Cerciolo. Any questions or comments on the committee report or the action items? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Betterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer.
Yes.
Mr. Beach.
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Cerciolo.
Yes.
Ms. Sample.
Yes.
Passes.
All right, education technology. Can I get a motion to adopt 4.01 through 4.04?
So move, Beth.
Second, Carolyn?
And we have a committee report.
We do. The Ed Tech Committee met yesterday morning. The first item on our agenda was the Montclair State Risk Protective Factors Survey. Dr. Moss presented a presentation from Montclair State. Our district has been randomly selected to participate in the Middle School Risk and Protective Factors Survey. The potential dates for administering the survey are March 15th for 8th graders and March 16th for 7th graders. The survey would be administered in the social studies classes via Zoom. Parent permission will be required. If students send in the permission form, they will receive a $5 Amazon gift card regardless of participation. Students without parent participation will work on a different in-class assignment. This survey has been administered since 1999. Our district has participated in the past. Dr. Moss will ask Montclair State some questions based on committee feedback. This survey needs board approval and will be included on the February 21st agenda if administrators decide to seek approval once getting back that information that Dr. Moss was going to follow up with them. More information to follow on that. Next, we discussed the Start Strong assessment results, the presentation that we saw this evening. After that, we discussed the ESSER programs. Oh, thank you, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting the microphone, I'm so sorry. We discussed the ESSER programs, the YMCA, the STEAM, and reading after-school clubs started this week for grades K through 5. They were very popular, and the classes filled up immediately within 24 hours. So it's a very good sign. We'll follow that and see how successful that is and have continuing conversations around that. Next, we talked about a new program with a partnership with Huntington Learning Center. The Huntington Learning Center will offer math tutoring on site at the middle school on Tuesdays and Thursdays, both before and after school. Students needing this additional tutoring were identified using iReady Diagnostic and NJSLA. Class size is 4 students or less. They will be grouped by like skills. There are 17 families participating in this program. The program starts February 9th after board approval tonight, and the program will run through April 27th. Next, we discuss the March Parent Academy. This is a new event the district will be hosting. The Parent Academy will be on March 28th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Hollenbrook School. The evening will consist of 2 sessions of learning for parents, plus a keynote speaker and music workshop for staff and students. More information to follow, but please save the date. Next, we discuss the March in-service schedule for approval on our agenda tonight. The March in-service is scheduled for March 17th. Then we discuss Spring Teacher Academy. The committee reviewed the staff facilitators for approval. Reminder to teachers that deadline for registration is February 15th. Next, we discussed, Mr. Belsky gave us a quarterly tech update, same things that we saw with the budget hearing tonight, the proposed upcoming technology projects for the district. And then we set our next meeting for March 10th at 8:30 a.m.
Thank you, Mrs. Fiore. Any questions or comments on the minutes or action items? All right, can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Betterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer.
Yes.
Mr. Beach.
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Cerciolo.
Yes.
Mrs. Ham.
Yes.
Passes.
Personnel, can I get a motion to adopt 5.01 through 5.09?
I move that. Second, Jonathan.
And we did not have a committee report, so are there any questions on the action items?
Where are we?
Personnel, 5.01 through 5.09?
Oh, okay. Let's set out here.
What's that?
Excuse me. I'm sorry, here's the agenda. Okay, I have it.
Any questions?
No.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Betterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer.
Yes.
Mrs. Beach.
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Cerciolo.
Yes.
Mrs. Ham.
Yes.
Passes.
Moving on to communication, can I get a motion to adopt 6.01?
So move that.
Second, Carolyn.
And we have a committee report?
Yes, the committee met on Tuesday, January 24th. We discussed follow-up policies, policy 5511, student dress and grooming follow-up. Since the last committee meeting, the policy was reviewed again by the middle school administration. The board discussed the concerns with straps versus no straps on shirts. Some committee members advised that the shirt should require a sleeve or strap for the current proposed policy. And committee members voiced the concern of the difficulties finding dresses for 8th grade dance and other activities, as well as the community's prior public request for strapless dresses to be allowed at the school dances. The policy will require straps or sleeves for school, but will allow for minor exceptions for events outside of the academic school day, such as school dances. Policy 2560.01, the therapy dog. This policy needs to be in place prior to the beginning of the therapy program at RMS this spring. The therapy dog will be phased in slowly to allow the dog to acclimate to the school, and meeting with students will be individual at the beginning of the program. Dr. Hart referenced an APA research paper that was attached to an article from the Garden State Coalition of Schools that cites the school counselor model as the comprehensive model for therapy dogs. The committee discussed liability insurance and coverage and discussed that the Bright and Beautiful Therapy Dogs insurance would only provide coverage when the therapy dog is handled by a registered volunteer. The dog would be covered under the school district's property insurance if owned and handled by a school employee. Revised bylaws, policies, and regulations. Bylaw 0152, board officers. The updated policy provided to the committee provides the board 2 options for electing board officers. One with a majority vote of the members of the board present and the other with a majority vote of all members of the board. The committee discussed the current practice for the Readington board is to elect the president and vice president by a majority of board members present at the reorganization meeting in January, and the policy update formalizes this practice. Committee members agreed that it is important for board members to be present at this January reorganization meeting, and the date is provided well in advance. Bylaw 0161, call adjournment and cancellation. The bylaw guide 0161 presented to the committee had been revised to better align with the current governing statute NJSA 18A 10-6 and the administrative code NJAC 6A 32-3.1. The changes were not substantive or discussed that in practice, the decision to call a meeting would need to be made at least 5 to 6 days in advance of the meeting to provide adequate notice in posting to 2 newspapers. Bylaw 0162, notice of board meetings. Bylaw guide 0162 has been revised to better align with the current governing statute. Changes again are not substantive. Policy and regulation 2423, bilingual and ESL education. The district is expanding its ESL program and will continue to look towards expansion in conformity with this policy. We discussed revised regulations concerning safety and security, regulation 8420.2, bomb threats, regulation 8420.7, lockdown procedures, and regulation 8420.10, active shooter. The information in the 3 regulations will formally move to the district safety plan, which already exists. Safety plan is reviewed annually. The committee members requested an annual notification to the board when the safety plan is updated and the SOA is completed. School calendar for 2023-2024, the draft. The committee discussed the calendar, and Dr. Hart will discuss the calendar with Hunterdon Central and regional school districts to align as closely as possible. Advocacy, Dr. Hart discussed teacher retention and S3440, the revision of the definition of sick leave under 18A. The committee expressed appreciation for the addition of advocacy to the agenda for discussion. The committee meeting relevant board goals for follow-up. Goal 2, engage in activities that advocate for our community's needs. And goal 4, to continue to improve communications and expand community engagement with all stakeholders. Our efforts will continue our focus on transparency, broadening our efforts beyond our locality, highlighting and celebrating district accomplishments with an emphasis on sustainability and green initiatives, and developing collaborations with our local governmental entities. Upcoming press release, tentative topics based on the communication plan for February, budget time of year, and kindergarten registration reminder. For March, new member bios and summer enrichment. For April, pupil services, and advertise the BioSwal celebration. Items on the agenda this evening: policy 5511, policy 2560.01, bylaw 0152, bylaw 0161, bylaw 0162, and policy 2423. And the next meeting is scheduled for February 27th at 4 p.m.
Thank you, Mrs. Walsh. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes or the action item? All right, can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Betterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer.
Yes.
Mr. Peach.
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Sosiello.
Yes.
Ms. Hamel.
Yes.
Passes.
All right, do we have any unfinished business? No, all right. New business. We have board tours. March, you want to talk about it?
Each year when we welcome new board members to the Board of Ed, we start to look at a timeline to do board tours around the district. So, and we like to do it around budget time because it would give you an opportunity not only to see current and existing programs, but as we look at capital projects for next year, we can take you places and show you some of the plans that we have in terms of updating facilities, renovations, or anything like that.
But not on the roof.
But not on the roof. We will do boiler rooms if you want. We generally look toward the first week or so of March to schedule board tours. I can send out an email, but I want you to kind of check your calendars for the first couple weeks of March and let me know if there's anything that doesn't work at all. The schedule usually looks like this. We usually take it over the course of 2 mornings. One morning we would start at, let's say, Hollandbrook, an earlier school, and then we would move to White House School, a later school. And we would do a different morning and start at RMS, an early school, and then we would move over and do a tour of, for example, Three Bridges, which would be a later school. We generally start around 8:30, do an hour in one building, drive to another building, and then around 9:30, 9:45, we would tour the second building. You're done 10:45, 11 o'clock. And if there's anything in particular that you want to see, just let me know, and we can try to coordinate that. But the building principals will really lead you through the board tours of their buildings, and they'll talk about some programs, and you can see certain capital projects that we have planned for next year.
It's not mandatory.
Not mandatory, it's completely optional, but this is your opportunity to see the district.
Mhm.
So I guess I know that nobody's probably prepared to give dates now, so I will send out an email, but this is just a heads up, an email will be coming to try to coordinate board tours, and I'll do it the best I can to accommodate your schedules, as well as the principals, so that they can be prepared as well, and days that work for them too.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there any other new business? All right, we are now open to the public for items on and off the agenda.
Good evening. Dr. Hart, members of the Ed Tech Committee, Policy Committee members, Jason Blum, and all the members of the Reddington Township School Board. My name is Ellen Goodfellow, and I'm speaking tonight as a resident of Reddington Township, as well as a staff member. As well as a longstanding member of the Traumatic Loss Coalition, a mental health clinician, and a mental health advocate. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you to each and every one of you and applaud you for taking the time to review and look at the therapy dog policy that is having its first reading tonight. I just want to extend my sincere appreciation for your time, your commitment, dedication to the students and staff of Reddington, and to the development of this policy. I thank you for everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Goodfellow.
So they went to the state capitol and made their voices heard. Remember that? They wanted freedom.
Ellen DePinto, Reddington Township. My two boys attend RMS. I just wanted to go over a few points that were made in the Reconsideration Committee's report regarding the Inner and the Dying Girl. In the report, the committee states that when books are self-selected by students for leisure reading or independent reading assignments, it is the right and responsibility of the student and their family to make determinations regarding what is or is not appropriate for the student to read. How could I have made this determination for my child when I was unaware he removed this book from the library? I was never notified that he checked out a book from the young adult section. When he brought the book home, he showed it to me and I read the back of it, and the cover had a quote on it. Though this novel begs comparisons to John Green's The Fault in Our Stars, it stands on its own in inventiveness, humor, and heart. And it referenced that it is now a major motion picture. I was naive and assumed that the books in the middle school would be age appropriate and not contain sexually explicit material. I know better now. When I spoke with the librarian, she told me that she herself was unaware that this was in the book because she had not read it herself. So even if I did write a letter to her in the beginning of the year, asking her to please not allow my child to take out a book that contains sexually explicit material, she would not have been able to guide him away from this book because she had no idea it was in it. If there are no indications within the library that this book contains these indecencies, how is my son to know not to select it? He would have to consume it in order to find out, since the librarian was unaware and unable to guide him. At that point, it's too late. The committee states that according to policy 9130, they cannot remove material from a collection solely because it presents ideas that may be unpopular or offensive to some. How can you say this book is offensive to some? What data did you collect to determine that having children read books that contain dialogue about eating pussy, dirty sluts, and licking buttholes is only offensive to some? Because I had data from a Rasmussen poll in the fall of 2022 that found 77% of voters are concerned that school-age children are being exposed to sexual material that is not age appropriate. This survey found broad agreement across political and demographic categories. 78% believe it is important that parents have control over what books are present in public school libraries. 69% believe books containing explicit sexual depictions of sex should not be present in public high school libraries.
And this majority rises to 79% for middle school libraries and 85% for elementary schools. So please tell me how you determine that this book is only offensive and unpopular to some. I shared my concerns about this book with many members of this community, professionals, friends, and family, etc. Every one of them had the same reaction. It was a gasp followed by disgust. Some wouldn't even read past the first few examples of the over 80 I had. My one friend shut the book and slid it back across the table to me. They are educators, principals, attorneys, law enforcement, designers, hairdressers, restaurant owners, young adults, parents, grandparents, etc. Several of them apologized, saying they were sorry to hear that my son had to experience this in school. They also couldn't believe that I had to go through the challenge process to have it removed. The educators I know check their middle school libraries, and this book is not in theirs. I then realized that not one adult at RMS showed any concern that one of their students read this indecent content for a school assignment. Their immediate concern was how to handle a parent like me who would be presenting a book challenge. Something is wrong here. Things need to change. Our children deserve better. The committee states that this novel is reserved for the students in 8th grade or those demonstrating an advanced maturity level equal to an 8th grader or above. Who determines the level of maturity? What specific qualifications do they hold, and what criteria do they use to ensure the child is mature enough to read sexually explicit material? Hear that sentence again. What child is mature enough to read sexually explicit material? To have the word child and sexually explicit material in the same sentence is disturbing. No child in middle school is mature enough for sexually explicit material, and no adult should think it is okay to knowingly provide it to them. I find it interesting that you take issue with me apparently violating the rights of other families to determine which library resources are acceptable for their child, yet you take no issue with violating the rights of 6th and 7th graders and immature 8th graders by restricting their access to this book. The Library Bill of Rights states that library policies and procedures that effectively deny minors equal and equitable access to all library resources. Are you timing me?
She
May
can
I
have my
finish?
time.
I have maybe 3 more minutes. Can I continue?
Can you try to,
Can she have my time? If I was
technically, we're
gonna
not allowed
speak.
to do that because it's Robert's Rules of Order. I made that mistake before and I apologize for that.
Oh,
Can I read one more page?
let her finish. You have to take a
Please.
fair.
I went through many hours writing that challenge to this book. Received no call from Dr. Hart like he said he was going to. May I have this moment?
Go ahead.
Okay.
The New Jersey Association of School Libraries states on their website that school libraries should not restrict access to materials based on the age of library users. By stating that only mature 8th graders can access this book, you are violating the rights of the other students at RMS. It seems you want to use the Library Bill of Rights when it suits your defense of keeping sexually explicit content in the school library, but then you ignore them in your justification by saying you restrict this book to only mature 8th graders. You can either say this book is appropriate for middle schoolers and keep it on the shelf with no shame, or you need to remove it because you can't violate the rights of the younger students. You can't have it both ways. The New Jersey Association of School Libraries, the NEA and the NJAA, provides guidance to schools facing these book challenges. In fact, librarians share their resources with the committee. They advise districts not to communicate about their book challenges via emails because emails can be over-requested and they don't want the communications accessible to the public. They provide confidential support and step-by-step instructions about how to respond. They want districts to report these challenges to the Office of Intellectual Freedom. The decision to not remove this book was made before the committee even formed. I was never asking for this book to be banned. I was asking for a mistake in the book selection process to be corrected. I would love to believe that had Ms. Singer read this book, she would not have selected it for the library in the first place. This is the last part that I'll finish up, but I feel it's important for the township to know what these authors are up to in the young adult genre. While I was researching book challenges, I came across an interview of Jesse Andrews, the author of Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. During the interview, he states, librarians tell me the same story over and over. A kid thought they hated books. Then they gave him my book. He liked it. Now he's reading more books. That's why my book is on the shelf. That's why we need lots of kinds of books on the shelf to get as many kids reading as we can. In terms of students being too young to read his book, Andrew says, if you think bleaching the library shelves is going to stop your kid from finding out about sex, I have some pretty bad news. That shit is out there and your kid will find it. I want everyone to be advised that Jesse Andrews doubled down on this, and in his second book, The Haters, which I have learned is in classroom libraries at RMS, this book is even more sexually explicit. I've not read this book yet, but I've read the Common Sense Media review on it and have seen several excerpts that show it has even more indecent vocabulary for our middle school children, such as all variations of fucking, motherfucker, asshole, cunt, dick, bitch, jizz, the poos, etc. It has a teen couple having sex, a lengthy discussion of oral sex and how to do it, excessive discussions about penises and erections and coming in sinks, a descriptive sex scene and a date rape that is brushed over and never portrayed as wrong. The underage characters get drunk and high on drugs and do things they don't remember. The characters write a song where the chorus say, if you love your dog, why don't you fuck him? I bet he would love it, at least you should suck his dick. The definition of smut is sexually explicit or prurient language or material such as books or movies. Jesse Andrews is writing smut, and school libraries are putting it on their shelves because it gets more kids to read. Parents, please read the books your child brings home from RMS. You cannot trust that they are decent and good. There are many reasons this book should not be in a middle school library. The committee's report was very weak. The committee report highlights that this book is about death, dying, and grief. Me and Earl and the Dying Girl barely deals with grief and is a poor example at that. The remarkable journey of Coyote, Sunrise, Center of Gravity, and When Friendship Followed Me Home, and over 50 other titles I have come across are much better options for your students who have unfortunately suffered immeasurable loss. There is absolutely no need to provide sexually explicit content to convey the message of grief and dying. I respectfully recommend you reconsider the decision to bring this to a board vote. I also ask you make some changes to your book selection policy to make sure young adult books are read cover to cover, since authors like Jesse Andrews are writing books like these. I really appreciate you letting me go over my time. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Pinto. Any other comments? Nothing online? All right, that closes public comment section. Can I get a motion to move to executive session in accordance with Sunshine Law to discuss a personnel matter regarding employee 6797 and RTEA negotiations for approximately 30 minutes, at which time the board expects to return to public session where action may be taken. The matters discussed will be made public if and when the circumstances requiring confidentiality no longer exist. However, it is not presently known when such circumstances will exist.
So move, Beth.
Second, Carolyn.
Can I get a roll call?
Mrs. Betterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mrs. Menser.
Yes.
Mr. Peach.
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Cerciolo.
Yes.
Mrs. Ample.
Yes.
Passes.
7:52. Okay, we're adjourned.
Okay.